Elements have always been the very core of Genshin, whether it may be in the combat or the lore. And with these 7 elements come the 7 archons, and with the archons come the nations, and with the nations come their core themes. These core themes have often been in tangent with each archon's approach to the archon quest, before and during the in-game timelines. Take Zhongli for example. In his second story quest, Zhongli wasn't allowed to tell the traveler about the fall of Conria due to his NDA contract with Celestia. Raiden Shogun, or should I say A, embodies eternity in a rather possessive way. For her, her own concept of eternity was born from an experience during the cataclysm that gave her major losses, which is why she established the Vision Hunt Decree to counteract the people's ambitions and aspirations, which she believed would cause rapid advancements that will precede the next event of destruction to be handed over by Celestia. Through her total rulership, she assumes total responsibility in leading her people to the pursuit of eternity, which in the Archon quest came synonymous to the concept of stagnation, still and unmoving like a shocking sensation of paralysis. But this is one way to perceive the essence of the elements through the Archons. Apart from the regional and lore significance, why don't we take a look deeper into the characters of the same element? The court is now in session, with another episode of Deep Dive, where we dive deep into the element of Electro and the significance the characters have with it. So the timing seemingly fits right with this patch's release of a new Electro character in Clorinde. I was supposed to cover her background and her story, but alas, I have chosen to go with Siege Queen's story quest first, in which I had to do the heart-wrenching third wholesome quest of Monsieur Neuvillette, so I didn't get to do Clorinde's story quest just yet. But outside the Fontaine Archon quest, it would be really hard to get to know more about Clorinde's character. I mean, she's been quite a mysterious figure in Fontaine all throughout the Archon quest, and we didn't really get to see her in action as much as we did see Cyno during the Archon quest of Sumeru. All we knew about Clorinde was that she was part of the Mauritius Phantom and a feared champion duelist due to her undefeated record in duels. But even with this limited information about Clorinde, it's possible to establish an idea about the Electro element, especially since many people thought that Clorinde would be the Kujou Sara of Fontaine before the said region even dropped. Well, Clorinde and Kujou Sara have major things in common. They both enforce the law and order in their respective regions, they both oversee people, and they both have a strict demeanor. In short, what they have in common is authority. Honestly, it makes sense, given that the Electro Archon is the most authoritarian-like among the Archons we've encountered so far. Even with Cyno, we can see the ruthlessness of a character imbued by the power of Electro. By virtue of authority, we get to see a common pattern among Electro characters, and it's also worth noting that among Clorinde, Kujou Sara, Cyno, and the Raiden Shogun, they all display this principle of being able to strike first, which is a suitable portrayal for the element. Now, the role of authority and being able to strike first is not correlated at all, but there are some nuances to the blending of both concepts. If we define authority as a strict figure that imposes the law on people, then it wouldn't be able to account for the rest of the Electro cast. And not everyone is as active as Cyno or the Raiden Shogun to apply the strike first principle to their character. In fact, Clorinde and Kujou Sara have different approaches to this concept. Clorinde, being an experienced hunter, knows that preparations had to be made through the appropriate implements for a trap to be initiated. And Kujou Sara is a general that would always factor in strategy and orders to be followed before initiating an attack. Delving deep into the Raiden Shogun's character in particular would show a subversion of how we define authority. A, the person behind the Raiden puppet, is more soft-spoken and less aggressive. She even looks more timid when put side to side with the Miko. When the traveler took A to a walk during her story quest, she was still shown to radiate authority given the intimidation she has brought to the people. Of course, she is the Electro Archon, the highest role one would have in the entire region of Inazuma, but compared to the Raiden Shogun, A fits more to the way we perceive the Archons. Like for example, Venti has another reputation as a bard, Zhongli has another reputation as a consultant and as an expert for ancient rocks and artifacts. Fussalor has her human form celebrity reputation, while Nahida assumes the reputation as Sumeru's deity. The intimidated reaction from the people of Inazuma upon seeing A take a stroll was in respect to her reputation. But in this particular scenario, I believe reputation would be less appropriate, so I find it more befitting to use the term esteem instead. I know, esteem alone wouldn't suffice as a distinct association with Electro because we get Neuvillette, Ayato, and Furina for Hydro, and someone like Ayaka or Ganyu for Cryo. But if you go back to what I mentioned earlier, there is a principle of being able to strike first that perfectly encapsulates the essence of Electro. This term would be better rephrased as the ability to act first, or basically just the word initiative. Take Kuki Shinobu for example. Despite the Arataki gang's infamous reputation, we know her as the esteemed deputy leader of the gang. And in the gang's affairs, she is often the one who takes initiative in getting things done. However, we could say the same for Arataki Ito in a sense that he also has the esteem and the initiative. But in most of the dynamics we see in the gang, Ito surely spearheads the rough sketches while Shinobu takes the responsibility to follow up until the finishing touches. To add, Ito's esteem is being seen in a rather negative light, and although he's the boss of the Arataki gang, he functions similarly like its mascot with his subordinates being just as goofy as him. Shinobu's initiative to assume most organizational tasks of the gang made her stand out with a respectable esteem whenever people think about the Arataki gang. And this becomes an additional core piece that we could put as part of the authority concept jigsaw puzzle. Because how can someone have a strong hold on their authority if the respect of others isn't present? If fear and annoyance were to become someone's reason to view someone highly, then it's crossing lines of being notorious instead of holding a place of authority. Most of the time, respect is maintained through a shared understanding, that is which both parties mutually acknowledge their complementary relationship. If we go back to Cyno, Clorinde, and Kujou Sara, they have an established esteem that blends with their status of authority. Kujou Sara and her subordinates in the Tenryou Commission operate with the hierarchical nature of its military environment. Cyno has the matchless loyalty and trust towards him given their shared duty over upholding integrity. Clorinde doesn't incite fear to people deliberately, but as a symbol of Fontaine's law, people react with intimidation primarily out of respect for her dueling prowess that they would rather plead guilty instead. Sometimes during a storm, a thunder's booming sound could be so loud that it gets our attention. Some would react out of fear and some would not react at all upon acknowledging that it's the way it is. And it's a perfect imagery to portray the interplay with respect and esteem for the context of the Electro characters. So I would have to say that respect also has a part to play even with the characters that follow. This respect-founded esteem seems to be the foundation of the Electro characters, may it be respect with regards to the natural structure they are in or in personal relationships. If we could talk about the latter, Beidou would be a great example. She has a remarkably good reputation in Liyue given her easygoing personality and good judgment of character. And much more if we zoom into the dynamics of the Crux fleet. The crew puts a huge trust on Beidou's leadership, and their loyalty has been a result of the mutual respect that Beidou also shows to her crew. At this point, it has become clearer that authority, respect, esteem, and initiative eventually coalesce under the bigger concept which is leadership, in which it would make sense to push the narrative that characters bestowed with Electro have the ability to take charge, pun not intended. Whether it may be a tendency, an asset, or a position, leadership is that distinctive quality that separates the given Electro characters to authorities belonging to different elements. And although Neuvillette is an obvious great example for someone belonging to another element that can take charge, his association would be more in line to the commitment and morality aspect in which the other Hydro characters reflect. I do have plans on making a separate video about Hydro, but that's in the future. But going back, if we bring in the topics of negotiation and cunningness, there is also Yelan and Yae Miko, in which their main differences lie on the direction in which they use their cunning nature. Yelan's affiliation with the Liyue's Ministry of Civil Affairs have her centered around her commitment to her operative and espionage work, but then Yae's action in the Archon quest don't really limit her within the confines of being the chief editor of Yae Publishing House, or even as the Lady Guji of the Grand Narukami Shrine. Both may be forward by nature and both have their use of pulling the strings, but Yae does it in an approach that highlights her initiative, like her ability to negotiate with Scaramouche in sparing the Traveler for the Gnosis. It would be resembling that of Beidou's good judgment of character since no one would be expected to arrive to aid the Traveler in that situation. In a way, she did take charge in the development of the events that led to the resolution of the Inazuma Archon quest. Keqing may look like your stereotypical workaholic, but it was through her initiative that she managed to shoulder many responsibilities as the Yuhang of the Qixing. It may be confusing that she would be likened to Neuvillette due to her being committed to her duties, but her role also requires her to manage other people and oversee their tasks, as opposed to just delegating. This often creates a highly demanding environment due to her perfectionistic nature, and this is the very same quality that made her have the esteem she has today. We see the mutual respect again between two fellow Electro characters in Cyno and Sethos, where they set a great example on how leaders of two opposing factions settle disputes. Sethos took charge and assumed leadership of the Temple of Silence in place of his grandfather after his passing. Cyno, on the other hand, had the initiative to propose a duel that settles who gets to possess both Ba fragments. And it's through both of them that represented both the Temple of Silence and the Academia in a mutual respect that would rekindle their partnership. Lisa assumed full responsibility over the Knights of Favonius library, and she also has mutual respect with the other knights while holding quite an authoritative reputation among the people who visit the library. In unusual cases, there is Fischl who has her own authority in her realm of fantasy, although she earned a trusted reputation among the members of the Adventurers Guild with her investigative prowess. In the events during Summertime Odyssey, Fischl took on a more active role in the facilitating of the group and was often the one who takes initiative in regards to information gathering. Then there's Oz acknowledging Fischl's authority in regards to their dynamic. Among the pack of wolves, Razor is known to lead the pack and assumes the role of a guardian in wolvendom. He even possesses the initiative to watch over the area and defend it against the Abyss Herald during the first Traveler quest. And in the same topic of initiative, we have Dori, who is a merchant known for negotiating goods or materials that is highly sought after that could only be bought if the customer could afford its acquisition. Apart from that, people know her as the esteemed owner of the Palace of Alcazar. Each Electro character so far has the common trait of leadership either by taking initiative or taking charge, and the same trait allows them to gain authority and esteem with their remarkable rapport with people. Just as lightning hits the ground, light travels for people to notice. It takes a more intense flash to make an impression for people that a loud booming sound will follow. Just like the characters who wield the power of Electro. It is with their impressive aura of leadership that people hold them at a high place of esteem. And that marks the end of this deep dive episode. And for you Denalists, what core theme would you associate Electro with given the characters that wield the elements? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this deep dive episode, you may now turn to the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal to render the subscribed verdict. I will see you all in the next video. The court is now adjourned. But how come Dori is Electro even if she's infamous for making Kaveh go bankrupt?
Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal.
Don't understand.
Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal. Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal. The judgment of the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal is